You walk into the den and the first time you see the dragons is the first time you meet. I actually made £5 and so my company went into liquidation and I got made bankrupt. I really pride myself on that all these years later, that I can say that I did this and no one helped me, and I think that's just a really important message for women. I sit alongside Condé Nast and Grazia and Elle and all these magazines, and they are my peers who recognise me as the vice chair, so I could stop working today and not do anything and have a six-figure income for the rest of my life.
This is the Leeds Business Podcast, and I'm your host, Phil Fraser. This week, we speak to Laura Bartlett, founder of fashion and lifestyle magazine, House of Coco. Laura tells us all about her disastrous appearance on Dragon's Den, how the clothes show caused her to become personally bankrupt, and then the growth of her current business. Before we start, I have one simple request. Please hit the follow or subscribe button on the app that you're listening on. That's it. Thank you. Laura is full of life. You're going to love this episode. Today's guest on the Leeds Business Podcast is Laura Bartlett, owner and founder of House of Coco. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Phil.
So, before we start, do you want to just give us your elevator pitch, your one-liner on what the House of Coco is?
House of Coco is a luxury print travel and lifestyle magazine distributed nationwide across the UK since 2014 to inspire people to leave their footprints all over the world.
Okay, right. So, we know what it is. Let's go back to the start. I know you started as a radio sales exec, is that right?
God, yeah, I think I was 19. It was my first proper job. The good old days.
The good old days. Okay, so tell us a little bit about that and where it led you to.
So I had a couple of jobs straight after doing my A-levels, which I kind of flopped and didn't do too well. And I had a job working in a pizza shop. And then my dad said, "How much did they pay you?" I said, £20. And he said, "You're worth more than that. You're not going back." I then got another job at a local hardware store. They paid me £25. And he said, "You're worth more than that. You're not going back." And so then when I heard this advert to work for the radio station as a media sales executive, I was like, oh my God, what is that? It sounds amazing. I want it. And so I applied and I said, I've never had a job before, but I'm a sponge and I'm willing to learn. And I winged my way into this career in radio at the age of 19 on something like 30 grand a year with a company car, and just fell in love with the world of media and publishing. And then from there, I was headhunted by a local magazine and I went to work for him. And he just ended up being the most inappropriate dick is the only way to explain it. And I just thought, if he can have a magazine, so can I. And that is really how my career and entrepreneurial journey started, really, with my first ever magazine at the age of 23, I think I was by this point.
Wow. Okay. So I won't ask you to name and shame. What was the magazine you were working on, and sort of, tell us about it. Tell us about the magazine.
The one where I was working before I started my own.
Yeah.
So that was a Leeds magazine, and it was all about restaurants in the city, openings. And he used to download his content from the internet. He never wrote anything original. And I just thought, what is the point in having your own platform if you're not actually using it to share your own voice? And so he kind of taught me what not to do. And that's when I decided I'll go and launch my own magazine. And the first one was called Urban Coco, and it was a fashion magazine. And it was all about independent designers in the industry and in the city.
Okay.
And
so launching your own magazine, how did you go about doing that? Because that's not an easy task.
I just thought, if he can do it, so can I. And I basically just became the yes girl. I would go to the opening of an envelope. I'd literally be at every single networking event, every single launch party, handing out my business card, letting people know that Urban Coco magazine had launched. And also 13 years ago, there was no such thing as content creators. Blogging wasn't even really a thing back then. And so standing out and having a magazine, it really helped me make a name for myself, because there wasn't a huge amount of competition, and certainly not in my city anyway.
Fantastic. So how did that talk us through the growth of that then?
So it all just started by me being at all these events, writing loads of content, sharing loads of articles, sharing my opinions. And then I decided to launch into print. So I did Leeds' first ever print fashion magazine. I had a launch party at Harvey Nichols. We had like hundreds of people queuing up to get their hands on the first copy at the after party at Norman's, the good old days. There's probably a lot of listeners, if they're from Leeds, who will remember Norman's and all the nights that ended in the gutter. And it just kind of grew from there, really. I used to do different events every single month when the magazine came out. We would do drinks and canapes and launch events every month in different bars across the city. And then that's when I just decided I didn't want it to just be a Leeds magazine anymore. I wanted to go global. And that's when I applied to go on Dragon's Den.
Okay, Dragon's Den. Now, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, or even if you're listening, there will be a link in the show notes to Laura's appearance on Dragon's Den. Now, I watched it this morning, and I have to say, it was quite difficult watching. What was it? Talk us through the whole Dragon's Den process first, and then what really happened.
It was brutal. So what you saw is what happened. But I applied for the show. You obviously don't think you're going to get on. And you spend a lot of time with the producers, and they were very much like, you're amazing. They're going to love you. You're amazing. And I had to create a prototype magazine. It wasn't the real deal. It wasn't the finished product. But they said, just put something together so you've got something to show them, and we'll explain it's not the actual thing. And then you spend hours on the actual day of filming in the morning from 7 a.m. where you're getting B-roll footage of you walking in and out of the den. And by the time I got in, it was like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been in my heels since 7 a.m. I'm absolutely knackered. And you walk into the den, and the first time you see the dragons is the first time you meet. Naively, I thought we'd all like hang out and have a coffee and get to know each other. But it's like the first time you see them is when you see on the show. And I walked in with 4 models who were wearing these incredible dresses by independent designers from around the world, and music, and it was like a real buzz. And then because the producers had really told me that I was just amazing and that they were just going to say yeah, I wasn't prepared for anything else. So when I was getting pushback, I really just wasn't prepared for it. I was the person who I would be screaming at, like, you idiot, how don't you know this stuff? But I was that girl. If you'd have asked me my name, I wouldn't have even remembered my name. It was really bad. Deborah was asking me about my numbers. I couldn't even string a sentence together, because the thing that you don't see as well is that there's 20 camera crew in the room and all the lights are on you and it's really hot. I think it's quite clear that I'm sweating. According to the feedback from the viewers, I looked like a pig in a frock, which is quite funny that all these years later, it's those negative comments that you remember. And then you can't leave until every single dragon has said, I'm out. It feels like you're in there for a lifetime. It was probably no more than 10 minutes. And then you get in the lift, which doesn't move. And if you're me, you will start to cry. I think it was quite clear that there was tears in my eyes. And then you basically rushed out the back door in a taxi, never to be seen again. And you wait to get the call to find out if your episode will air or not. And obviously mine did.
I have spoken to a few other people who've been on Dragon's Den. And in fact, I did a webinar about it. I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. And they say what you see is so much shorter than the whole thing. Do you think you got a fair showing on the program?
I feel like they pretty much showed the whole thing. I mean, if there were parts missing, it's all a blur. The whole thing is such a blur. I think I was 25 by the time I'd got on the show, and I just look back at myself with such pride and just like, oh, Lord, little Laura, like what a brave move to make. And I'm just so glad that I did it. I wouldn't do it now. I don't know if I'd recommend it to anyone, but it's great for exposure. We're talking 13 years later and I'm still talking about it now because people find so much intrigue in these shows. I'm grateful for the lessons, and I'm actually really glad that I didn't get the investment, because I wouldn't be the person I am today otherwise.
Yeah, I think you've always got to take a positive spin on that. But so a couple of questions, you just sort of answered that question. What were the benefits you took from it? Obviously, you didn't get the investment, and that's fine. What were the benefits you took from it? And also, would you recommend somebody going on it?
Yeah, the benefits obviously are the exposure. I think at the time I got verified on Twitter, and back before you had to pay for it, I was like, yeah, I finally have something in common with Kim Kardashian. I got that blue tick, which was so coveted back in the day, and loads of opportunities on the back of it. One of which actually was to partner with the Clothes Show, which at the time was the biggest fashion event. It was on the BBC. So my magazine, Elle, and Cosmopolitan were the media partner for the Clothes Show. And based on what they told me, I thought I'd make £500,000. I'm like, wow, Dragon's Den's really opened some doors for me. And I actually made £5, and so my company went into liquidation, and I got made bankrupt. So yeah, cheers, Dragon's Den.
Right. Okay. Okay. Laura, you can't say all of those things and me go, whoa. Let's just rewind slightly. So how did the closed show thing come about? And this was the live closed show, wasn't it? Not the TV program. So how did that come about, and what was the deal for that?
Yeah, so they basically see me on the show, and then by this point, Urban Coco magazine had been making a name for itself in the industry. We were already a reputable title, and so they were looking for different media partners for the show, and we ended up kind of getting this deal with them where we were the media partner, we would promote the show, we would get to be there and have this space. Based on what they told me, they said, create a special edition magazine, print 15,000 copies. We invested money into the stand, all of this kind of putting my eggs in one basket because I thought I was going to make all this money. And the kind of footfall that they promised us didn't really happen. The kind of clientele that were there, it was at the time when Towie, The Only Way is Essex, was just about coming up. And people were more interested in getting a selfie with Joey Essex and Amy Childs than they were looking at a magazine that had been crafted by me and my team. And so on the second day, when I'd made, I think, one sale and made a £5, it was very much like, I can either afford to stay here for one more night or go home. And by day 3, when there was just no footfall, it wasn't just my business. There were other businesses there that had put all their eggs in this basket and also weren't making money and had felt shortchanged. And by day 3, it was very much like, you know what, I need to go home. And that drive home, knowing that I've left thousands of copies of the magazine and I've left this stand and the company's basically, they owe all this money to people. And it was just that like, oh God, I have to go home and tell my mum and dad it didn't work out. And then as soon as I got home, my mum and dad just remind me really what matters in life is that I was healthy and I was well and I was loved and, so what, we just try again. So very much about putting life in perspective always.
So that was so that one event pushed the whole business over the edge.
Yeah. And looking back, the amount that I owed at the time, it was like £14,000. But as someone who was like in their early 20s and didn't have anyone to rely on financially, it was really overwhelming. And I reached out to a liquidation company because, it was I didn't know any of this stuff at the time. And actually, it was her who was the driving force behind the whole thing. She said, don't worry, we'll take care of it. And I had to pay her something like £5,000 to actually manage the whole thing. Obviously, looking back, paying her £5,000 and only own £14,000, it doesn't make sense. I should have just set up payment plans with people. But then I couldn't afford to keep paying her the amount that she needed every month. And I'd set up House of Coco by this point. And I'd started working with different tourism boards and traveling the world. And I'd said to her, look, I can't keep paying, £500 a month, whatever it was. I can only afford £100, say. And she said, and she ignored me. I never heard anything from her. And that was that. So I'd stopped paying the liquidating company. The company had already been liquidated. And then I was sitting in Cafe Nero having a coffee, and I went on my online banking and it didn't work. So I rang the bank and I said, my online banking's not working. And they said, oh, we'll put you through to the bankruptcy team. And I was like, what? I'm going to go home and make this call because I'm not having it here in the coffee shop. And basically I'd been made bankrupt without actually being aware of it. And so the woman who I'd hired to liquidate the company, she basically said that I wasn't paying her, and all this stuff went on behind my back. They went to court and they did it without me knowing, and I was made bankrupt. And at that time, I only owed her £2,000. I could have actually paid it. And when I finally got given all these court papers that I'd missed, there were pictures of me in my car. There were pictures of me all over the world. And she basically said, clearly she can afford to pay me when she's traveling the world. So yeah, always open your mail. That was a lesson I learned.
So had you received those documents?
No, I honestly don't recall receiving any of them. It was the first time I heard was when I rang the bank, when the bank wasn't working. I don't know if it's because I moved house and I missed them, or I don't know.
Wow. That's really difficult. Just again, can we just rewind again? Because there's so much stuff you're talking about. I need to just get backwards. So between the original company going bust, you then said you'd set up House of Coco.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you do that, and how did you do that?
So there was actually a period of time where once Urban Coco was no more, I didn't have anything. The only thing I had was my verified Twitter account. And so I started using that to sell tweets to businesses. You know, I would tweet about their business, they would pay me £100 or whatever. And that's just what kind of kept me going. Then I was actually, this guy that I've known through the industry had reached out and said we should start a magazine together. And so me and him started this magazine called Fibre Magazine, and we grew a team in Manchester. And anyway, it turned out that he was actually a con artist, and the money that I thought I'd paid him to build our website, he'd in fact just robbed me. And we had this team of about 8 girls who were writing content for us and going to all these launch events in Manchester. So when I discovered that he'd actually lied to me and just taken my money, I rang every single one of the girls and I said, look, girls, I found out that Anthony's been doing this. So therefore, I'm actually just going to start a new magazine by myself again. Obviously, I'm not starting from scratch. I'm starting from experience. It's called House of Coco. We're going to launch in print. If you choose to stay and work with me, the new issue will be out in 2 months. And anyway, it turned out that every single one of the girls, he'd hit on them and he'd been really inappropriate with them. And so they all decided to stay. And actually 10 years later, there's a few of them that's still a part of my team now. And they've been with me this whole journey. So yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of making it up as I go along. I already had contacts in the industry from when I launched the first magazine. So it was just a matter of kind of reaching back out to everyone and saying, look, it's just me now. This is the new brand, this is what we're doing, and it's just kind of snowballed from there.
Okay, so in terms of financing House of Coco, originally that was just sort of through stuff you were doing on Twitter and sort of bits and pieces rather than any funding or anything like that.
I've never had a single penny of funding. I've never had any financial support from anyone. I've never had a credit card, an overdraft, a loan. I was bankrupt, so you have to learn how to make money by yourself. So initially, yes, it was just through me selling tweets. And then it was about me selling the vision. So I had my designer create a media kit, and then I just pitched it to brands. You know, this is House of Coco. This is what we're about. This is what we're going to be. I think sometimes people struggle to launch the business or get people involved because they're thinking about where they are now, and you really have to sell the vision. And my vision was that House of Coco would be a household name, that would be a luxury travel magazine that would compete with Condé Nast Travel, that we would have a team of people who would travel the world and stay in the most exclusive places. And that's what we've been doing. And that's people bought into that vision from day one. So it's always been self-funded. And I really pride myself on that all these years later, that I can say that I did this and no one helped me. And I think that's just a really important message for women.
Okay, two things I want to pick up on. I want to talk to you about Condé Nast Traveller. Talk to me about what it's like being a bankrupt. What does it feel like? What's it like in real life? Were there problems? You know, how does it affect you mentally?
No, I've got a really beautiful family. So we very much lived our lives in a constant state of perspective. And so, yeah, I was made bankrupt, and my mum's response was, oh, well, it's only money. You know, at least you're healthy, at least you're well. And I just think that in life, and I think especially as an entrepreneur, it's our job to go through these situations and think, what is the lesson? And the quicker you can learn the lesson, the quicker you can recover. And the lesson from the bankruptcy was really just to teach me that I'm more capable than I ever thought possible, and that I don't need to rely on anyone for anything. And actually my ideas are enough, and that's kind of been proven. So yeah, I'm really, really grateful for everything that's happened. All the things that you think don't work out for you actually end up really working out for you. They just made me the person that I am today.
Right. And things like credit cards and banking, are they just cut off, or are the ways around it, or?
Yeah, so when you make bankrupt, obviously there's an article that goes out in the Gazette, so your name is out there in the world and everyone knows you're bankrupt. I just think when things like this happen, just own it, own it. I don't care what people think of me. I'm very solid in who I am as a person. I know that this didn't dictate who I am. It doesn't take away from the fact that I'm a good person. So yeah, just learn the lessons. And also, yeah, it means that you can't get any form of credit. You can't get any form of credit cards, nothing like that. And it remains on your system, banking, whatever, for I think it's 6 years. So by the time the 6 years came up, I'd made enough money that I didn't even need to consider anything. And I never have, and I never will. So yeah, it's a really good place to be.
Okay. Okay. So, we all need a big target to aim at. There's Laura in Leeds. With all due respect, a bankrupt in Leeds says, I'm gonna take on Condé Nast Travel magazine. That's insane.
I mean, you could call it insane, but like, why not? Why not? Reach for the stars. Why not? If other people can do it, so can I. And that's just how I see it in life in general. If someone else is doing it, it means that you can do it too. And it doesn't mean it's oversaturated. It means there's a market for it. And it means that no one has ever done it the way you've done it. And I know, it might have sounded like something to mock if I'd have said that 10 years ago, but I'm now the vice chair of the BSME, which is the British Society of Magazine Editors. It's the top echelons in my industry. I was approached by them to join on the committee 2 years ago, and they've now asked me to be the vice chair. So I sit alongside Condé Nast and Grazia and Elle and all these magazines, and they are my peers who recognise me as the vice chair. So what started as something that you might laugh at a decade ago is actually now my reality, because I first had the thought and the belief that that was possible for me.
That's absolutely amazing. I mean, one of my first, I started very similar to you, selling advertising space in magazines. So I know the market and I know the field and all that sort of thing. Those who are old enough may remember Just 17 magazine. I used to sell space on there, and you'll know Campaign magazine. That was where I started. So yeah, I mean, where you've got to is absolutely brilliant. I want to talk to you more about House of Coco and where it is now. But before we do, I need to speak to our listeners and viewers about the Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal. The Leeds Business Podcast Fair Deal has two sides to it. My side of it is I bring you every week, free of charge, inspirational and motivational and amazing guests like Laura every week. You, listener and viewer, have two sides to your part of the deal. Part number one is I want you to recommend this podcast to one other person that you feel will get benefit from it. And part number two is I want you to write a review on the Apple Podcasts app or at podchaser.com. Sound like a fair deal? Sound like a fair deal, Laura?
Sounds fair to me.
Okay. So it's a fair deal. Right, let's get on. Okay, so House of Coco, we've relaunched. We're going to take on Condé Nast. Talk to me about the magazine and talk to me about how you've grown it and built it and where it is now.
So where it is now, it's still a print magazine. It's distributed nationwide across the UK. It's sold in WH Smith and Harrods, Selfridges, tube stations, airports. We're also stocked online at Newsstand, which is one of the biggest online distributors of magazines. They distribute 3,000 publications. We're the third largest distributed title on there. And it's myself and a team, and they are all freelance. Everyone has always been freelance. We've always worked remotely since day one. I believed that if we were creating a magazine to inspire people to travel, then why would we sit in an office 9 to 5? We should practice what we preach. So I've managed to build this business whilst ticking off over 40 countries, staying in some of the most exclusive destinations around the world, signing off proofs in mountains of Switzerland or drinking mocktails on the beach. And it really was, yes, I wanted to build a business. And yeah, I know we talk about rivaling Condé Nast, but really it was just about staying in my own lane and running my own race and doing it at my own pace. And the thing that I wanted was the only thing that my mum and dad have ever wanted for me, and that's to be happy. So I've only ever been chasing happiness, and it's just so happened that I've managed to build a successful business by doing that. I've got 25 people in the team, some salespeople, mainly freelance writers who are constantly traveling the world representing the brand, which now when I look back was what they call these days user generated content, where my writers were representing us and creating content for the magazine. Like, I can't help but believe that we were such trailblazers in so many aspects. You know, we were remote from day one. Everyone in the team was freelance from day one. The entire business was created using user generated content. And these are all the buzzwords and things that people are only just tapping into now. So, you know, don't want to blow my own trumpet or anything.
Trailblazer. You're a trailblazer. In terms of running a business, what are the difficulties of running, a purely remote team?
Well, I love being on my own. I actually really thrive in my own company, in my solitude. I think the difficulty is when other people don't. So it's making sure that you are giving them the attention that they need, But also we have regular meetings. We have an annual retreat in January called Joyful January, where we kind of all get together, have loads of fun and kind of come up with all the ideas and things that we're going to work on that year. But the whole point of it is freedom. And it was, I trust the people that you work with, trust that they'll get the job done. I don't care where you do it from. I don't care what time you do it, as long as you do it. And trust, I just think it gets you a long way.
Right, right. And in terms of a business model, it's purely ad sales?
Yeah, we also have an entire division in India that manage our sponsored content. So we have 100 plus orders every single day from different agencies around the world supplying content for the site. So it's a complete and utter passive income. And honestly, I could stop working today and not do anything and have a six-figure income for the rest of my life. It's really, when I sit and think about what I've created, I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was just having fun, but I've actually done something really incredible here. So yeah, there's always opportunity to make more money in different avenues. We're looking into more affiliate advertising now, also banner ads on the website. We obviously have the advertisers in the print issue. There's so many different multiples of income streams really that you can have when you've got a publication, a membership for our readers. Yeah, lots that could be done.
So in terms of turnover and profit ratio, what's the sort of split between online and print now?
Oh, we're like 80% online and 20% print. It really is going that way. And I know so many people say print is dead, but I really truly believe print is red. Yeah, not as much as it used to be, but I feel like there is a 360 going on now where we were all running away from it, but actually people are feeling overwhelmed with their use of technology. They don't want to be on their phone so much. People are craving me time. There's nothing more me time than reading a print magazine with a cup of tea and disconnecting from the world. And that's why I've constantly been very much like, we will keep doing print, because when you see the bandwagon, it's too late. And the bandwagon is everyone saying digital only, and they're completely getting rid of their print issue. And I believe that it's going to come back. Well, it hasn't really gone anywhere. It's still working. No. So yeah, absolutely. And I suppose they work together as well, don't they? Because people pick up the print and go, oh, I can read stuff online, and people online go, oh, I didn't realize there was a print version. And I suppose you can cross-sell advertisers between the two as well. Yeah, exactly. Like I say, the website is the water. You need it every single day. And the print magazine is the champagne. It's a treat.
Which you need every day.
I used to.
Right. Okay. Actually, you've just led me into that then. So you're teetotal now. What's that? 18 months in, something like that?
Well, 600 days, so 19 months.
Right. Okay. So do you want to tell us why? And I mean, was there a crash or? Talk to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of reasons really, but getting through life without my dad, he passed away 3 years ago, was enough of a struggle without having to factor in a hangover. Also, when did we agree that drinking alcohol was something that we were going to do forever anyway? And I just really reached a low point. I was still very much crying every single day hysterically after it had been a year since my dad passed away, and I got to such a low point that I just couldn't see a way out. It was a really dark time, and I phoned the doctor. It's almost like you think that's the answer. And I told her how I was feeling, and I just said, I'm really struggling to even smile. Like, what is the point in being here without my dad? Wasn't suicidal, but certainly didn't care if I woke up the next day or not. And she basically said I needed to take antidepressants, which is obviously the answer that they give to everyone. And it was a wake-up call. I just thought, that's just not who I am. And I put the phone down, looked in the mirror, and just kind of remembered who I was. And I thought, no one's coming to save me but me. What do I need to do to turn this around? And alcohol was the obvious answer. Like, get rid of alcohol. It's not making me feel good. And I went out 2 nights on the bounce. I had a launch event, and then I was out with my friend. And then when I woke up on the Monday morning with a severe hangover, I said, I'm never drinking again. And I meant it. And I knew that I meant it, because there is nothing more powerful than a made up mind. And I went out for dinner 2 days later with my friends, and they were all ordering champagne, whatever. And I ordered a mocktail, and they said, oh, you're not drinking? And I said, oh, I don't drink. And they went, since when? I went, well, since 2 days ago. I'm not a drinker. And I adopted that mindset from the beginning. And it's been the easiest, best, most liberating, life-changing decision. And I'm so glad I started when I did.
Amazing. Fantastic. I keep trying. I don't get very far. I don't get very far.
I think
I've got a friend who I think he's nearly into 2 years now, and he I know people get evangelical about it, but he just says it could change his life.
I don't know anyone who's quit and regrets it. We give alcohol so many chances. Why not give sobriety one? It's honestly changed my life. I am a runner. I'm training to run a marathon. I've lost over 50 pounds. It's not even about those things. It's about the level of clarity. I already was very aware of what's going on in the world, but it's almost like a veil gets lifted and everything just becomes so crystal clear that no glass of wine could ever make me feel the way sobriety does. And I actually never embarked on this journey to say that I'll never drink again. But when I reached the 19-month mark a couple of weeks ago, and I was sitting on this beach in Greece, and I thought, yeah, I'm never going to drink again. And I know I won't. I just don't see the benefit of it. So yeah, it's a really good place to be. Can't recommend it enough. But also, there's a lot of people that are sober curious. I think don't even be wishy-washy. Either you're in or you're out, and stop pretending to yourself. People go, I'm thinking about quitting. Yeah, you're thinking about it to make yourself feel better about the fact that you're not going to quit. So either you're doing it or you're not, and stop fannying around. But I don't know anyone who's done it and regrets it.
Right. I think I consider myself sober curious.
I think, for everyone who is sober curious, what I would suggest is start small. So just go sober for 100 days and then see how you feel. When I got to 100 days... and this is also this is also the other reason why I quit as well, because I thought, if I can't quit alcohol, then I'm an addict. And I am not an addict, and therefore this has to go. So if you can't quit something, alcohol, whatever it is, if you can't quit something, then you're addicted. And then that's a whole other conversation that you need to have with yourself. And I think people just need to be a little bit more honest with themselves. So many people don't even enjoy alcohol anymore. At least try scenarios without it and see if you can have a good time. For me, I just speak my drunk thoughts sober. It's such a liberating place to be. I love it.
Great stuff. And I did one of the episodes we did with a guy called Chris Bax of Bax Botanics, which is like a gin-like alcohol-free drink. So I'll put the link to that episode in the show notes as well. Before we get onto your how-to, I just want to touch on you do some work with a charity. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so Leeds Women's Aid is the charity that supports women escaping domestic violence and abusive relationships. And they reached out to me and asked me if I'd be their first ever ambassador, and I have been for the last 2 years. The reason why it was aligned for me was I was actually engaged a few years ago, and he was draining me emotionally, financially, spiritually, in every single way and shape and form. And I left that relationship, and so many women told me that I was brave for leaving potential marriage. And it's not even until it's been just over 3 years, but he was living in my house, he wasn't paying any money, I was paying for everything. And then after I left him, my dad passed away a few months later. And so it isn't even until these last sort of 6 months when I'm really digesting quite how emotionally abusive that situation was. My neighbor had to phone the police at one point. Yeah, it was bad. And so I'm really passionate about women escaping these relationships, spotting the signs, and also being financially independent so that they don't feel like they have to stay in situations where they're not safe. So yeah, if anyone is in that situation, Leeds Women's Aid charity is really incredible.
Great stuff. And again, there'll be a link in the show notes to that if anybody needs that sort of help. So Laura, tell us your how-to, or tell us what your how-to is going to be, and then tell us how to do it.
Okay, so my how-to is going to be how to get your business featured in the press. I know so many entrepreneurs have amazing stories, and they're probably watching these other businesses getting featured in the media, and they're like, why can't I get that? And the best way to do that is to just do it yourself. Like, reach out to all the editors of the magazines that you want to get featured, see the articles where your competitors are being featured, and look at the author, look at the journalist who wrote that article, find their contact details, reach out to them. You've got to remember as well, when you're reaching out to people, that they are getting hundreds of emails every single day. So you need to stand out with your subject line, say something witty and unique and personal. Find out the personal information about the journalist that you're reaching out to. Have they got something in their Twitter bio about what they like? Do they love fish and chips, for example? Like, write something that's going to grab their attention. And then share the story. But there needs to be something in there that just sort of is unique to you. Whether, gone are the days for me personally where just being female and a founder is enough. Like, cool, we get it. And also, Black owned businesses, yeah, cool. But what is what makes you different? And make that stand out in the email. Also, I think as well, not just doing that initial outreach where you're just like, hey, this is me. Can you feature me? Reach out and ask them, what are they working on? What kind of things are they looking for? And then you can tailor your approach to that. And also, if they say no, they don't want to feature you, ask for feedback. Why not? What are you working on in the future? What's the content calendar? And see if you can tailor something specific for that.
That's brilliant. That for anybody who's listening, that's a brilliant, easy way. It is a case of, JFDI, you've just got to, old school, pick up the phone, send an email, contact the person and, give them ideas. As I said, my background's print, and I always looked at it when looking for PR is, the guys coming on a Monday, or the women, the guys or the women coming on a Monday morning with 36 blank pieces of paper, and they have to fill it. If you can fill half of a page for them by sending them good content that's interesting and the readers are going to be interested in, they're going to love you, because that's half a page they don't have to write. And you'll know that with your writers. If you've got this many pages to fill, give me good stuff and it'll go in. And it does work. I've had loads of stuff in print just by doing that, just putting stuff out and making it interesting, making it relevant, speaking to the right person. Great. So all our listeners, I want you all in print in the next week.
Yeah, no pressure.
No pressure at all. No pressure at all. Okay, before we finish, Laura, it's been brilliant. We always ask our guests to give us another Leeds business to give a shout out to. So who's your Leeds business shout out?
I know you said that this should probably be someone quite new, but if I'm honest with you, I don't think there's enough spotlight on people that have been around for a long period of time, because it really isn't about making it, it's about maintaining it. And so I want to shout out Pink Gorilla, which are my friend Jordan Odu and Deborah. They do incredible events in the city, launch parties, and they've been standing the test of time for a long time. So I think they are worthy of a shout out.
Okay, fantastic. And they'll be in our show notes as well. Laura, it's been absolutely fantastic. We've covered loads of brilliant topics. Thank you very, very much for coming on the podcast.
My pleasure. Thank you, Phil.
Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you found it interesting, inspiring, and of use. To make sure you don't miss out on any future episodes, please subscribe to the show. Go on, do it now. Do it now before you go off and do something else. Thank you. Much appreciated. Oh, and don't forget our fair deal. See you next week.